Hey, everybody, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today, we're going way back in time to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 5. And it is a wild ride, let me tell you.
It's amazing to me how these ancient stories still have so much to teach us, even thousands of years later. This one really dives into ideas about power and respect and what happens when we realize we're not actually in control of everything.
Yeah, for sure. So let's set the stage here. We've got the Philistines. They've just totally defeated the Israelites in battle. And they've captured something very important called the Ark of the Covenant. Now, this wasn't just some random treasure chest.
Right, the ark was super significant for the Israelites. It was a symbol of God's presence, almost like a direct connection to the divine.
Exactly. So you'd think they would, treat it with some respect, or at least been a little careful with it. But instead, they're feeling pretty cocky after their win and decide to put it in the temple of their own god Dagon. It's almost
Like a victory trophy.
totally like a, hey, look what we got kind of move.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when things start to get really strange.
You could say that.
So the next morning, they go to the temple, and Dagon's face down on the ground in front of the ark. Pretty spooky, right?
Yeah, I mean, how did that happen?
Well, you probably figure it was an accident.
Mm.
Maybe someone bumped it or something. So they set Dagon back up all nice and proper.
But then it happens again.
Yep. And this time, it's not just a little topple. Dagon is totally smashed. Head and hands are broken off. All that's left is the base of the statue.
Okay, now that's more than just a coincidence.
Right. It's like the story is setting up this showdown between these two gods. Like, who's really in charge here?
The Philistines clearly thought they could just take this symbol of God's power and kind of put it in its place, but it seems like it totally backfired on them.
Big time. And to make matters worse, the people of Ashdod, the city where they're keeping the ark, start getting hit with some serious plagues. These painful tumors start breaking out everywhere.
Ouch. So not only do they have a smashed up God to deal with, now they've got a public health crisis on their hands.
I think at this point I'd be rethinking a few things. Maybe that ark isn't such a great souvenir after all.
You'd think right. But their solution is to just move the ark to a different city.
So they think maybe the problem's the location, not the ark itself.
Exactly. They try sending it to a few other cities, but guess what?
The plagues follow them.
Every time.
Like it's saying, nope, you can't get rid of me that easily.
It's like their attempts to control the situation are actually making it worse.
They're trying to handle something that is ultimately out of their control.
Exactly.
So what happens next? Do they ever figure out how to deal with this divine problem?
Well, they try a few more things. But eventually, yeah, after a lot of suffering and probably a whole lot of head scratching, they finally admit defeat.
So would they just give up?
Pretty much. They pack up the ark and send it back to the Israelites. They started out so triumphant and ended up having to admit they couldn't handle it.
It's like a lesson in humility. You
Yeah.
can't just go around grabbing sacred objects and expect everything to be fine.
Right. There are forces at play that are bigger than us, and sometimes our attempts to control those forces can backfire spectacularly.
It definitely makes you think about the things in our own lives that we might be trying to control a little too tightly. What are our modern day arcs, so to speak? What are those things we're trying to force into a box when maybe we should be treating them with more reverence and respect?
That's a great question. It's something for all of us to think about. Like, what are the things in your life that you're trying to bend to your will instead of acknowledging their power? It's a good question for everyone to consider, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
We'll have to dig into that more in just a bit. But
Please,
first,
Dickhead.
it's interesting how the Philistines didn't even believe in the God of Israel, but they still experienced the consequences of messing with something sacred.
Right. It really shows that sometimes belief or disbelief doesn't matter. There are certain things, forces, powers that you just don't mess with.
It's like the story is saying, hey, whether you believe in it or not, this power is real, and you better pay attention.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a universal principle almost. And this idea of respecting the sacred, it goes way beyond just physical objects or religious beliefs.
So you're saying it's about more than just, bowing down to a statue.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that there are things in life that deserve our reverence and attention.
Okay, so things that are bigger than us.
Right. And maybe even a little awe.
So how does that apply to the Philistines and the ark?
Well, think about it. They tried to contain it, control it, move it around like it was just another piece of loot.
But it didn't exactly work out for them,
Not at all. They had to surrender to its power in the end.
because ultimately they couldn't control it.
Right. It's a reminder that sometimes the wisest course of action is to let go, to release our grip on the things we think we can manage.
Especially when it comes to matters of faith or spirituality.
Definitely. It's not always about forcing things into submission.
So what's the alternative?
Maybe it's about recognizing when to step back and say, okay, this is something I need to approach with a little more humility and respect.
That makes sense. And I think that's where the modern application comes in.
Yeah.
Because we all have our own Dagon, so to speak. Those things we cling to elevate above all else.
The things we build our lives around.
Maybe even worship without realizing it.
It's true. And it's not always about material possessions either.
What else could it be then?
It could be our need to be right, our obsession with success, our attachment to a certain ideology.
So basically anything we put on a pedestal.
Yeah, and when we elevate those things to a place of ultimate importance, we risk losing sight of what truly matters.
We get so fixated on the idol that we miss the bigger picture.
The deeper meaning.
It's like we're so busy looking at the statue that we forget about the temple it stands in.
That's a great way to put it. And I think the real challenge for us is to identify those idols in our own lives.
To figure out what we're giving too much power to.
And it's not about eradicating ambition or desire or anything like that. It's about recognizing when those desires become distorted.
When they start to control us instead of the other way around.
Exactly. We need to ask ourselves, what am I really seeking? What is driving my actions? And is this ultimately leading me towards a life of meaning and purpose?
Wow, those are some deep questions.
They are, but they're important ones.
And I think the story of the Ark and the Philistines gives us a framework for how to approach those questions. It's a reminder that sometimes the things we think we're in control of are actually controlling us.
And that recognizing our own limitations can be the key to finding true freedom and fulfillment.
So instead of trying to force everything into submission, maybe it's about learning to let go.
To embrace the mystery and the wonder that lies beyond our grasp.
It's about recognizing that there's something bigger than us at play.
And choosing to align ourselves with it.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have, from ancient plagues and broken statues to the idols we create in our own minds.
And we've seen how a story from thousands of years ago can still offer timeless wisdom for our lives today.
It's amazing how these ancient narratives can resonate so deeply with our modern experiences.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. As you go about your day, consider this. What are the arcs in your life? Those things that demand respect and inspire awe.
And what are your Dagons? The idols you might be inadvertently worshiping?
Remember, true freedom comes not from control, but from surrender. From acknowledging that there are forces at play that are bigger than us and choosing to align ourselves with them.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of history, wisdom, and the human experience.
Until then, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep. It's funny, when we think about idolatry, it's easy to picture those ancient statues and temples.
Yeah, like something from a bygone era.
But the Philistines and the Ark, it shows us that idolatry is still a thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's just way more subtle now.
Right. It's not about the outward appearance anymore.
It's about our hearts. You know, what we truly value, what we put first in our lives.
But we really got to look at our motivations.
Exactly. What drives our decisions? What are we chasing after?
It's like those deeper questions you were talking about before, like, what am I really seeking?
Exactly. And does it even line up with what I say I believe? Is it taking me in the right direction,
Because the Philistines, they were so focused on winning.
Yeah.
So focused on capturing that ark.
Yeah, they wanted that symbol of power.
But they totally missed the point. They didn't get the true meaning behind it.
They tried to control it like it was just another prize.
And it just caused a ton of problems for them.
It's that whole idea of what you resist persists.
So how do we avoid making the same mistake?
I think it starts with recognizing our limits. We're not in control of everything.
We got to learn to surrender.
Not give up, but just acknowledge that there are things bigger than us.
And maybe instead of fighting against them, we should try to align ourselves with them.
Exactly. And when we do that, we often find a lot more peace.
More purpose.
Even more joy.
It's like we can finally relax a little.
Yeah.
Let go of that need to control everything.
We can let something bigger carry us.
So as we wrap up today, I want to challenge everyone listening.
Yeah.
Think about the story of the Ark and the Philistines.
Yeah. What idols are you holding on to? What are you trying to control that you might need to surrender?
True freedom comes not from being in charge of everything, but from recognizing that there's a bigger picture. and finding our place in it.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on another deep dive. It's always a pleasure to explore these topics with you.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.